I think at some point, currency becomes irrelevant.
Jensen, any thoughts?
By the way, the Nvidia earnings call is later today.
And by the way, since currency is relevant.
Cheers.
Elon just wants to share with you some breaking news.
Yeah, even Tesla CEO Elon Musk wanted to get Nvidia CEO Jensen Huang to break that news ahead of the big earnings release, which is now 35 minutes away. The two appeared before a crowd of global investors eager for scoop from two of the biggest lieutenants in the artificial intelligence revolution. Look at Nvidia ahead of the report, up 2.8%, Tesla up just under 1%. So here's what analysts are expecting. For the third quarter, earnings per share, $1.25 from Nvidia. Revenue expected to come in at $54.92 billion, and that would be quite a jump of more than 54%. Here's a countdown. Earnings right after the bell, 4 p.m. Eastern. Joining me now live from the SC25 Tech and Compute Conference in St. Louis, Missouri, Moor Insights and Strategy CEO and Chief Analyst Pat Moorhead. It's not just Elon who was pushing along to try and see if he could break that news, but I'm sure everyone there is at the edge of their seats. What do they need to hear most, Patrick? What do you need to hear most?
Yeah, so I think the number one thing, I think they're going to bring in good numbers on revenue and EPS, but what I want to see is the guide. There's a couple things going on with the guide. You've got this near-term Blackwell rollout that's moving. We're pretty sure that China's zero, so I don't expect any movement there. But moving forward, right, Jensen floated at the latest GTC this $500 billion revenue number between 5 and 6 quarters. How does that translate into the guide? So those are really the top 3 things that I'd like to know a little bit more about.
Okay, can you explain what you mean by how does that translate to the guide? Forgive me, that's analyst speak. I'm sure some of our viewers are like, what does that mean, Liz?
Absolutely. So the big hyperscalers out there increased their capital expenditures, right? The Amazon, the Microsofts of the world, the Google by 40%. Going into 2026. And that was already an increase of almost 40%. So that's 40% on top of 40%. How does all that expenditure translate to NVIDIA revenue moving forward? It should be good. I'm expecting a very good guide based on that. And the statement that he made in Washington, D.C. about this $500 billion revenue number.
Okay. Are you, as an analyst who looks at all the line items, concerned at all when you see, listen, huge companies, Metas of the world, the so-called hyperscalers coming out and saying that their spend is going to be hundreds of billions of dollars, which is more than their free cash flow?
Yeah, so right now I'm not concerned because if I look at the balance between free cash flow and what they're doing in debt or special instruments when it comes to XAI, the revenue does support that because the people who are consuming all of those GPUs are builders, right? Or they're builders of AI. They're frontier model companies like an Anthropic, and an OpenAI. Meta seemed to be doing just fine, being able to translate AI into incremental revenue and profits. I don't think that has slowed down. But what Zuckerberg views this as is a once in a decade opportunity to move that forward. And if he's not going to make those investments, then his potential competitors will make those investments.
So which names do you like in all of this space the most?
Yeah, I think right now, if I look at valuations, if I look at growth capabilities, there are some companies in the enterprise space that they're getting a little love, but not a lot of love. The biggest growth out there is going to be in the enterprise AI space. So the IBMs of the world, the Ciscos of the world, the Dells and the HPEs of the world. They're getting a little bit of AI love, but not as much as I believe they will get in the future when the AI phenomena really clicks in for businesses and even governments.
Yeah, you know, IBM has hit a lot of records recently, and they've got a nice move year to date. Maybe that's a little bit more, about 32%. Maybe that's sort of a more comfortable position for some of our investors to be involved in. But what about this warning that Michael Burry, who is the short seller, put out? And it's basically surrounding the point that he's making about why he is shorting Nvidia at the moment. These chips last, in the past, about 5 to 7 years. Well, now it's a much shorter, and I confirmed this with somebody intimately involved in the chip-making world. So my source told me maybe 3 years before everybody moves on to the next big chip or the next big thing. But Michael Burry's saying that the hyperscalers, that would be the Metas and the Microsofts and the Googles, the Alphabets of the world. He says, by my estimate, they are understating depreciation of these expensive chips by $176 billion between next year and 2028. And he specifically mentions Oracle, and he says that they're able to overstate their earnings by close to 27% by doing this, by stretching out longer what they can depreciate, which helps their tax picture, right? Does any of that worry you?
So, to be blunt, it does not. And let me tell you why. So I spent 35 years in and around semiconductors. I spent 11 years at AMD running product lines and doing product marketing. And when I say, and I worked at a .com during the .com era. This is very different. The two arguments are, one, the GPUs are going to burn up because people are overclocking them. They won't last that long. And the second is their useful life. If I go back and look at all of the preceding NVIDIA GPUs, V-series, H-series, everything before it, those pretty much inside of the cloud still have paying customers for every generation. What it doesn't factor in, Liz, is the diffusion of AI to the enterprise. Everybody's not going to need the highest performance GPU to do these interactions.
They want them. So they will demand them.
Well, the frontier model folks who are building these models are the ones that absolutely need them, and they will be on this stair step to the next generation. But I believe that the diffusion of the inference that goes in when the enterprises, when the industrial edge kick in, they don't need the highest performance GPUs, and they are going to be using GPUs that had traditionally been used before a couple of years to train those models to do inference on these smaller models, models for manufacturing.
And finally, I'm very interested to know specifically about AI spending, and we know that it is incredibly heavy and hot. You've got a lot of sovereign nations, Saudi Arabia just striking a deal with XAI. And so there are so many people who are interested in speaking to these other governments. What about China? Do you think that we will eventually begin to see the flows of chips going from the U.S. back to China? It used to be 20% of NVIDIA's business. Now, NVIDIA will tell you it's zero.
Liz, every day that we wait, I think the light gets dimmer on anybody doing good business in China. The NVIDIAs, the AMDs, companies like that. And the reason is because China is very actively creating their own technology. And instead of buying into, let's say, NVIDIA and leveraging NVIDIA, the very low performance chips that NVIDIA would sell, instead we're giving it up to China, and they are creating their own technology. And here's the risk, I would say geopolitically, is that what happens when the Chinese start exporting their AI to places like South America, Eastern Europe? I believe that the best thing for the country is to export AI and diffuse it everywhere. That's a really good play.
Patrick, I'll let you get back to the conference where everybody's chattering and I'm sure waiting for those earnings numbers to come out, about 27 minutes away. We appreciate you getting in front of the camera. Thank you.
Liz, thank you for having me on. Thank you so much.